Our next question comes to us from DeSoto, Kansas. This listener says, could you explain Christian liberty? It seems like it's being run into the ground.
Well, I don't think that that's the direction it's going. Instead of being run into the ground, I think it's being exalted to the sky. And I feel like the sky is the limit today. And because you're a Christian, why, you have liberty to do most anything that you want to do. And that, of course, is a reflection of contemporary culture today that now has thrown off the Judeo-Christian ethic, and the sky's the limit. You just do what you want to do. You do your thing. And the important thing is, along with Christian liberty, and we do have liberty in Christ, there also is responsibility. Now, Paul says, and he gives us an example of this, and I think that it might be well for me to turn and look at this. Paul puts down a standard for us in the epistle to the Romans. And in that epistle to the Romans, in the 14th chapter, he says that one man esteemeth one day above another, another esteemeth every day alike. And let every man be fully persuaded in his own mind. Now, we're not under any legal system today. If you feel like that you ought not to worship on Saturday, well, you shouldn't worship on Saturday. My feeling is that Sunday is the day. The objection that I have to these people that want to put me back under the Mosaic system, the law, they say it's wrong for me to worship on Sunday. Well, my position is that one man observes one day and another, but let him be persuaded. Let him have a conviction of it. Now, if a man has a conviction that he ought to worship on Saturday, my position is let him worship on Saturday. But he's got no right to infringe on my liberty of worshiping on Sunday, because that's the day that the Lord came back from the dead. He was dead on Saturday, but he was alive on Sunday. And I worship a living Christ, and therefore every Sunday is a day to celebrate his resurrection. Now, that's my conviction. But I'm not going to condemn that man that still wants to be under the law. Now, then he makes it very clear that whatever you do, you should have a conviction of that. Paul says in the 14th of Romans, he says, verse 22, hast thou faith? Have it to thyself before God. You trust God. And happy is he that condemneth not himself in the thing which he alloweth. Now, my friend, I don't care what it is you do. If you have a conviction that that thing is wrong, for you, it's wrong. A man said to me, I think it's wrong to go to the theater. He says, when I go, I come out feeling guilty. And I don't think people ought to go to the theater. Well, I'll say this. For that man, it's wrong. You have to have a conviction what you do. And that's the reason that we've got so many of these half-hearted, lukewarm Christians running around today. They don't have a conviction of what they're doing. You ought to have a conviction of what you're doing. And whatsoever is not of faith is sin. And my friend, anything you do half-heartedly for the Lord, did you know that's sin? Somebody says, oh, this morning they're taking another offering and they're taking it for that radio program of McGee's over in China. And I just don't see it at all, but I'm going to give $10. Do you know that fellow's sinning and giving? He's committed to sin. Whatsoever's not of faith, you're to believe in it. And that's one reason that our givers are always limited in our program. We're limited to the elite among Christians, those that have to have a conviction. That's the reason I just don't promote and beg and pull, because if you don't do it with conviction, it's sin. Now, that's Paul. But wait, he's still not through. He says this, that we that are strong ought to bear the infirmities of the weak and not to please ourselves. Now, I believe, and Paul says this, he says, Meat doesn't commend us to God. Whether you eat meat or whether you don't eat meat, it makes no difference. If you want to eat meat, you eat meat. It gives you indigestion. Why, I found out when I eat too much ham, actually it makes me sick. So I don't eat ham a great deal. Very seldom do I eat it. But it's not because it makes me sick. But there could be another reason for not eating ham. Paul says, if ham makes my brother, meat makes my brother be offended. If I cause my brother to be offended, then I got a responsibility. And that is, I got a responsibility not to do that thing. Now, I want to be very candid with you about this. When I was a pastor, I never went to the theater. Be honest with you, I felt I could go. I felt like it wouldn't hurt me to go. There were certain pictures I would like to have seen. Not that they were so great, but I felt like that I'd like to see what was going on. But I went through 15 years, and I'll be honest with you, I never was inside of a theater, and I give you my word, I didn't know they had degraded and become so depraved when I began to see them on TV. And now what I missed, during that 15 years, I'm seeing them on TV today, and they're degrading, depraved. Now, I didn't go to the theater. Why? Because I have some great hang-up and I'm a big separationist? No, I'm not. But I didn't want my brother to be offended. And I do believe that certain people would have said, well, if McGee can do it, I can do it. And I have a responsibility. I think Christian liberty leaves off where my brother's Christian life begins. And I think there are a lot of Christians today that are doing wrong because of that. Now, very frankly, there are friends. I'm being very frank with you because I think we need to be to understand this. I had a man when I built my home up here in Altadena. Actually, post office is Pasadena, but it's really up in Altadena. And when I built it, he was a man of means. He wanted to build me a swimming pool, and he would paid for it. He wanted to make it as a gift to me. And I told him no. I said, I deeply appreciate it. And you know the reason that I didn't take it is because I'm sure that there would have been people would have said, look at that preacher up there. Why, he's even got a swimming pool. And I probably could have driven a Cadillac because I think that there were certain ones that would like to have done that for me. And I would not take it. I drove a Chevrolet. I still drive a Chevrolet. Now, it's not because I wouldn't like to have a Cadillac. I could enjoy it as well as anybody. However, today, these gas guzzlers don't appeal to me. But back in the old days, the reason I did it is not because I'm some great martyr or that sort of thing. I'm not. I do have a responsibility as a pastor, and I think you, as a Christian, have got a responsibility. And in spite of all of my responsibility, I find sometimes people get offended at me. So, friends, may I say to you that when you ask, what is Christian liberty? You can do anything that's in the will of God that'll please the Lord. But even if that is something that he does not condemn, like eating meat, even if you find out that it's caused your brother to stumble and fall, you should not eat meat, my friend. Now, that's Christian liberty, because along with liberty goes responsibility. You see, the man who founded this country, this idea today, we're a democracy, we become a democracy, but we were not a democracy. It was a representative form of government. Only certain individuals voted. For instance, they had to be property owners. Well, do you know that here in California, got Proposition 13, that saved the homes of many retired people and middle-income folk. But the politicians hated it because, you see, it's cutting off a great deal of taxes for them. But it's wrong, I think, to let anyone have a privilege of voting unless he accepts a responsibility as a citizen. Now, I believe that with all my heart, because we're not a democracy. We weren't intended to be. And when it was a representative form of government, it was a better form of government. Now, somebody says, oh, you're pandering to the rich. I'm not pandering to the rich at all. And I think that up at the top, there ought to be some limits that are not there today because of the fact we're a representative form of government. And it was the Christian way, really, of doing things.